Okay, my friends, this is going to be jarring. This really goes to the root of belief. And these are the mythologies. And the Greeks wrote of them from the first origin of earth and the gods. Hesiod, we're going to look into him now, explains how the present world government came to be established. The kernel of the story is the tale of the Titans, the younger gods, how Zeus overthrew Kronos and came to rule the world from Olympus. Now they say the story was borrowed, not invented by the Greeks. So there was a younger story and the Greeks accepted it. But Hesiod apparently was instructed by the daughters of Zeus. And this was only not even 1000 BC. This was, I think, only 800 BC. Hesiod, the muses, which are the daughters of Zeus, came to Hesiod. I think he was on Mount Olympus. It might have been, well, whatever. No, I think it was Mount Helicon. Anyway, they came to him and they said, we want you to write down the history of mankind. And he said, I can't write. And they said, yes, you'll write. And he did. He wrote, I think, a ton of books, a ton of them. Let's look up his Hesiod. But that's the key. Now, right down here you see Zeus, Zeus, Zeus. He's all over the place. This starts with literally Gaia. And then the ancient gods, 100-handers, cyclopses, and all that stuff. And then Zeus takes over. And I mean, this gets so deep. But, and then I have a lot to learn. I need other people to help me to understand what the Bible says, because this was, most of it was borrowed right from the Greeks. It's all said in a different way, and well, not even a different way. We need to look into it. That's all. Let's just look into it and see what we come up with. Okay, so we are going to look into the authors at this particular time in history, which is 800 BC approximately. Hesiod was writing the Theogony and all of these works, and the reason he wrote them was because he was out tending his sheep, just a normal sheep guy, and the daughters of Zeus came to him on Mount Helicon, where he was just doing his sheep thing. And they said, we want you to write books about your history and everything that happened and celebrate the gods. And he said, I don't know how to write. And they said, you will write. And he did write. And he wrote prolifically. Now, you have to look up Hesiod Works and Days and Shields of Heracles and all the different works he did. But he was basically the first to write, and that was at the hest of Zeus's daughters, the muses. And they wanted to celebrate their heritage and the world that nobody knew about. All right, don't forget now, this was at the request of Zeus's daughters, the muses. And this is what Hesiod wrote. His works include a poem titled The Theogony, which is the beginning, the history of everything. It's a cosmological work describing the origins and genealogy of the gods, who are immortal, so somehow they're somewhere. Works and Days, which is on farms and farming and morality and country life, and a large number of lost or now fragmentary poems, basically writings. So the Theogony is the big one, and that's what they wanted him to write, was the history of mankind and the gods, basically. More the gods than the mankind. All right, now we go to Ovid, O-V-I-D, and he wrote Metamorphoses, which is the transformation of all these creatures into anything they wanted to be, because they were gods. And he wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote all these books. I did 15 books altogether. And the main theme of all his books was metamorphoses, which is the transformation is a unifying theme amongst the episodes of the metamorphoses. Ovid raises its significance explicitly in the opening lines of the poem, which is his writing. And he says, I intend to speak of forms changed into new entities. All right, and accompanying this is violence inflicted upon a victim whose transformation becomes part of the natural landscape. These are mud fossils. They're gigantic things. And they did this and made like sculptures and things just for fun. It says the theme amalgamates the much exploited opposition between the hunter and the hunted and the thematic tension between art and nature. And they were making art out of nature. And they could transform anything into basically anything. Where does it say? Here it is right here. There is a great variety amongst the types of transformations that take place. Transformations from human to inanimate objects like the Nile River, or constellations, or animals, from animals like ants and fungus and mushrooms to humans, change sexes in hyenas and colored pebbles. They could do anything they wanted with you because they could control molecules, apparently. I don't know what else to say. But they are supposedly immortal, and somewhere immortality is still somewhere. And there's a lot to examine here. Now, Ovid wrote this, and it was accepted as basically the whole world accepted it. This was in Julius Caesar's time. So he's taken everything, basically almost everything Hesiod wrote, he incorporated, or, he worked with all the different writers and consolidated it into this book, Metamorphoses. Okay, when we're talking about mythology, we're talking about Typhon, and Typhon was a giant, and here he was a giant dragon. This is what it says in Apollodorus. And Apollodorus, I think, was correct, because I found Typhon. He said, when the gods had overcome the giants, Earth was still more enraged, had intercourse with Tartarus, and brought forth Typhon, a hybrid between man and beast. In size and strength, he surpassed all the offspring of Earth. As far as the thighs go, he was of human shape and such prodigious bulk, he outtopped all the mountains, and his head often brushed the stars. From thighs downward, he has huge coils of vipers. I've shown this in very great detail. His body was all winged and unkempt. Fire flashed from his eyes. He spit fire, and all of the gods were so scared they turned themselves into animals and ran away. He was going to take over the whole earth, and then Zeus cut his throat with his great and mighty sword, which was the thunderbolt. All right, if mythology is true, we have to deal with this. The sky was the first who ruled over the whole world. Having wedded the earth, begat the first of the 100-handed, as they are named. And then it goes on and on and on. Everything here was just exactly Kronos and Hercules and all of these, Zeus and Rhea, and then they talk about Hesiod was the one who wrote this at the request of the muses, which were the daughters of Zeus. This is how it's just over the top, crazy, insane. This was the first mythologies written, and this is the library of Apollodorus. And everybody just laughed at him because it's the Cyclops, the ocean, these are all the planets. Tethys, Rhea, Themis, these are all moons and planets, and it appears that this is is looking like it might have very well been quite true. It's certainly Typhon's true, as far as I could determine. And they knew about this even in the 1300s or so. There's a map that shows Typhon on there with his throat cut. All right, this is North Africa. Well, this is North Africa. This is the whole world as was known at this time. This is 1375. And this is Typhon. And here's his throat cut right here. There's his head. And it snakes right across the entire top of North Africa. And there's his flared tail, which I've shown a million times. There's the Red Sea. Somebody spent a lot of money on this map, I'm telling you right now. Now, this was from 1375. I believe it's called the Atlas Catalan Abraham Cresque. And it shows all the rulers, and there's all kind of words here. I don't know, I can't read it. But there's some, I saw one or two that had this all translated out, what they meant. And it's really interesting. It talks about pearl divers and different places where they burn people up in the pots, and sometimes the women jump in with them, but the men never do. I mean, this was what the world was like. Okay, now that we are all educated, since the age of enlightenment, this just is nonsense. Well, I don't know. To me, it's not nonsense. I'm just not enlightened. That's all there is to it. I am not enlightened. Okay, my friends, I have shown undeniable proof of virtually all my claims. Now, can we just deny that this exists? PhDs do for years. Totally deny it. It's just not there. We don't want to look because it's not there.